This is an overview of the mods that I made to my Granite 4x4, converting it over to a full metal drivetrain capable of 6S power. First of all, I'll start off with the drivetrain itself. It is basically a Arrma center diff motor mount attached to a piece of the chassis from a twisted bent chassis that I pretty much just cut the center out of. Connected to two HSP 1/8 scale diffs. These diffs actually have the shape that I needed to fit in the bulkheads. The front diff is pretty much stock. I just shaved off a little bit of the sides. And I've also heat treated the ring and pinion. The cup to the output shaft is actually an Arrma cup, the same that's in the stock center diff. It's a 5mm shaft and it fit right on the old pinion with the two bearings. The rear diff has 3 Arrma drive cups. All 3 of them are Arrma drive cups. Again, the ring and pinion has been heat treated. All the dog bones are from a Arrma senton. And the 2 middle dog bones are actually the rear dog bones from the Arrma senton. Here's what the underneath of the plate looks like. I used the plate because at some point in one of my runs, the plastic chassis actually flexed out the center diff and it had it slightly at an angle, sort of like that, and it was binding up against the pinion gear. And that wasn't going to end too good, so I pretty much had to think up a way of fixing that. So I made the plate. That's pretty much what's going on with the drivetrain in general. So let's move on to the chassis. The chassis has pretty much been gutted. Gutted in the middle and gutted in the rear and the front. They had to be gutted like this to actually fit the cut up see, this is the front. Here's the rear. Obviously they're not interchangeable because I cut them to fit the diff a specific way, so I wouldn't actually end up putting the front diff in the rear since the cups are different. So they sit in there pretty good. As for the center diff, it seats in just like that. as a result of doing this, I had to relocate or shift the servo a little bit higher to clear the center dog bone. So it now has a nice metal mount, aluminum mount, and servo horn. And plus the mounting positions had to be changed slightly. So now it goes both straight to this. And it actually steers better than the stock truck because of the metal mount and servo. None of it gives, none of it flexes. So that's the chassis. Oh, I forgot. The rear hubs are actually from the center. And they have inch wheel hex extensions for the dog bones. Front axles are from the Red Cat Shredder. I forgot the HSP name or whatever, but it's pretty much the same thing. And these axles fit right in the stock 6mm hub from the Granite 4x4. As for the wheel extensions, they are the same 8mm extensions from the inside. I just made a washer or a race to go inside the 6mm, the 8mm hole to fit over the 6mm axle hub. And then the pin went in that after I drilled a hole. And I covered that with heat shrink so that the pin wouldn't move. I covered the rears in heat shrink too, just for the heck of it. Okay, so that's the chassis. Now for the front and rear bulkheads. The front bulkhead and the rear bulkhead pretty much connects right like this, which forms a chassis brace from these two aluminum plates bolted to each end of the bulkhead housings. The inside of the bulkheads had to be cut and gutted, like everything else, to fit over the diffs. Some a little bit more in places than others. They bolt in place like so. As for the bumpers and the wheelie bar, they've both been made from the actual car bumper. They have a bit of flex, a bit of give, but this is literally the toughest part of the car. Nothing is going to tear this up. Nothing is going to break this. Now, the stock wheelie bar piece that's left from the Granite truck, well, you can see what condition that is. It might break itself, but the part of the bumper that it's attached to isn't going anywhere. And plus, it definitely has a great deal of flex and rigidity. So it's gonna definitely outlive the car itself. Okay, some of the problems I've had with this thing. Drivetrains. I've been through 4 sets of drivetrains for this car. Different versions of ideas that I came up with that completely didn't work. And in the end, I said, just let me go with what I know works. So I attached the Diff cups from the Arrma Senton to the actual Diff itself, and wondrously they worked. It was 5mm, so that was pretty much luck right there, along with the pinion gear, which was also 5mm, and the hose matched up too for the pin. It actually matched up on the inside as well. So the pinion pretty much just slipped right over the drive cup, and I was able to use that as the input pinion. And that's for both the front and the rear. What I had on there before was the axle stubs that came out of this Diff, ended with something that the MIP drive shafts were able to attach to and secure it to with the little stub bolt that they come with. That tore up. It ripped it completely. I mean, it broke right at the little angle where it was coming out of the Diff. The MIP drive shaft just ripped that completely out. And it's still stuck in the MIP drive shaft. I ain't even bothering about trying to get it out of there. I'll probably have to use heat whenever I do try to get it out, but I'm not going to use that drive shaft for anything else anytime soon. As for the fronts, these are actually the second versions for the fronts. The first, I don't even remember the first, it's been that long. But the first tore up on the first ride. They just bent and ended up flying off somewhere, and I never even bothered to even think about them ever again. As for the MIPs, they did not fit the stock hubs. So I had to make a race just like I did for the front hubs, right? I made a really small race. The MIPs were 5 millimeters and the rear hubs were 6. So I made a small race so it could actually fit the hub. And that worked for a little bit, but then it just overheated and it got the diff hot and temps were just through the roof. So I was on the fence about even trying to use that. And then it tore up on me, so oh well. Traxxas junk, Traxxas upgrades. Don't do it. It's not meant for power. And that was only on 4S. This car still haven't seen 6S. I know these components can take 6S. Because the car that these diffs came from rode on 6S. And this diff is the same diff that was in that shredder. I have not torn up these diffs. These diffs then has survived 3 different versions of this drive shaft in the rear, just pretty much tearing up on me. The first 2 actually tore up on me with the stock center plastic drive shaft. So I knew that wasn't gonna work too well for power. So now the sentence drive shaft is in there and I know that's gonna hold up. So now it's time to get this thing back together.